You know what really bothers me about Tim Walz as a Marine who served his country in uniform? When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with.
If the only thing that they can find about Tim Walz to complain about is to disparage his military record that was clearly honorable. Remember, you can retire at 20 years. Tim Walz served for 24. I watched that interview and watched J.D. Vance present himself as suddenly very particular about precision in speech and very concerned about honesty. He's running with Donald Trump.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Pete Buttigieg, a guy who knows how to cut through the bull, just took Trump and J.D. Vance to task, and it's about damn time someone did.
Somebody who has set records for lying in public life. He just gave a press conference where fact checkers estimate that he told 162 distortions or lies. That, frankly, is just impressive in terms of being able to physically do that. It's like the Olympics of lying.
Trump's out here spewing lies like it's an Olympic event, and Vance is busy throwing stones at a real veteran while he's busy kissing Trump's ring. So let's start with Trump, the guy who somehow managed to lie 162 times in one press conference. That's right, NPR fact-checked it, 162 lies. Buttigieg didn't hold back, calling it the Olympics of lying. And you know what? He's right. Trump's out here setting records, but not the kind any decent person would be proud of. Then, as if that wasn't enough, J.D. Vance, who apparently thinks he's some kind of war hero, decided to go after Tim Walz, accusing him of stolen valor.
Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone?
Yeah, you heard that right. Vance, who spent his time writing reports in an air-conditioned room as an E4, but thinks he's in a position to question the integrity of a command sergeant major. Walz, a command sergeant major, didn't just serve, he led. And now, this Ivy League brat, Vance, thinks he can question that service. Give me a break. Pete Buttigieg, who actually served in combat, wasn't having any of it either.
And the fact that they have to go back to find a clip from 2018 to find the one time that he slipped up when he talks about the weapons of war that he carried and said something instead about carrying a weapon in war, it's kind of an exception that proves the rule in terms of how hard you have to look to find Tim Walz saying anything that isn't precise and accurate.
He defended Walz, pointing out that it isn't about one slip of the tongue from 2018. It's about respect. Walz put in his time, more than enough to retire with honor, and Vance's petty attack is nothing but a cheap shot. Then there's Jesse Ventura. Now, say what you will about Ventura, but when it comes to military service, the guy knows what he's talking about. He's a Navy veteran and a SEAL who served during Vietnam, and he called out Vance for his despicable behavior.
I think it's shameful that a veteran would attack another veteran. Governor Walz served honorably for 24 years in the National Guard. After 20 years, you are eligible to retire at any time you deem necessary. They talk about him missing his deployment. So I think that Vance is doing a disservice to himself and a disservice to the United States Marine Corps. I know a lot of great Marines, and Marines show respect.
According to Ventura, there's an unwritten rule among veterans. You don't go after someone else's service. Period. Ventura made it clear Walz served honorably, and in his rank, he wouldn't have been in combat even if he had stayed in. But Vance, in his infinite wisdom, thinks he's got right to judge. And don't get me started on Vance's support of Trump, the ultimate rich white boy who dodged the draft with bone spurs while other guys went to Vietnam in his place. Ventura nailed it. Criticizing a veteran's service disrespects the entire military, and Vance should be ashamed. Vance's big complaint, that Walz talked about carrying weapons of war. And you know what? Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But who cares? Walz put in his time, did his job, and earned his retirement. Vance is trying to paint him as a liar is like a little kid throwing a tantrum.
Who does he have respect for? Donald Trump, the biggest draft dodger from the Vietnam War. Donald Trump was your typical rich white boy who didn't have to serve in Vietnam because he could buy his way out of it, and that's who Vance is standing with, this guy who leads from the rear?
When Dana Bash asked the question, we were all thinking, does Vance find Trump's draft deferment shameful? Of course, Vance defended Trump, because that's what you do when you sold your soul. He said Trump never lied about serving in the military, but here's the thing. Trump didn't have to lie because he had Daddy's money to keep him out of Vietnam. Meanwhile, 5 other guys had to go in his place. Did they all come back? We don't know, but I'll bet they didn't go to live in a golden tower in New York City. So here's the deal. J.D. Vance is the one who needs to be put on blast. I've spent more time sitting in a latrine inside of a combat zone than J.D. Vance has in country. He's the one pretending to be something that he's not. J.D. Vance worked as a journalist, which in of itself is a respectable job. But he wasn't some door kicker or badass. He was an E4 in the Marine Corps that wrote reports. On the other hand, Tim Walz was operating in an E9 slot and had taken on the role of Command Sergeant Major in the National Guard, where he served his country for 24 years. He's a seasoned veteran with a wealth of experience. J.D. Vance was a snot-nosed brat from an Ivy League school, went wet behind the ears while Tim Walz was out there serving his country. For J.D. Vance to throw stones at another veteran's military service while ignoring the fact that Donald Trump perfectly fits the description of a fortunate son is outrageous. Think about those soldiers who had to go to Vietnam in Trump's place because he got a pass thanks to his rich daddy. What was their story? Did they survive? How many lives were lost or changed forever because of the atrocities of war, while rich white guys like Donald Trump got to stay home? Now we've got imbeciles like J.D. Vance trying to sweep that under the rug and spin the truth. Tim Walz did things right. He put his retirement paperwork in long before his National Guard unit was ever called up to go to Iraq. Walz served honorably and chose to retire after 24 years. No problem, right? Yet he's being called out by a draft dodger and a guy whose smoky eyes would make a raccoon jealous. J.D. Vance is a spineless worm trying to prove his loyalty to Trump, but word on the street is Trump doesn't even want him around anymore. J.D. Vance is catching heat from Buttigieg, Ventura, and Walz, and now even Trump regrets picking him. Basically, Vance is just a lemon Trump's stuck with. J.D. Vance trash-talking Tim Walz while licking Donald Trump's boots? It's beyond absurd. Trump, who can't even walk down a ramp without holding on for dear life, would have soiled himself the first time he faced any fire. Trump and Vance are as nervous as slugs in a salt factory, and they're getting slimed at every turn, and it's a good thing. We cannot let these simpleton idiots take over our country and ruin every bit of progress that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have made. Trump and Vance are planning to unleash Project 2025 on America, using executive orders in their first 8 days in office. Firing over 1 million federal workers will drastically impact law enforcement, likely leading to martial law to get their agenda in place. It's a plan that will strip away basic human rights, Social Security, and Medicare, a plan that will punish anyone who opposes it. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are trying to unleash hell on us all, so it's absolutely wonderful to see real leaders like Pete Buttigieg and Jesse Ventura set the record straight. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are trying to take this country into the future and build an economy that works for everyone. Donald Trump is just trying to stay out of jail. Choose wisely, America. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.